Srikanth Kondapalli in New Delhi. He's the Dean of the School of International Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Welcome back to the program, Professor. Now, we know that China and Brazil are traditional allies. They're both major economic emerging powers, and they both form part of the BRICS alliance, which also includes India and South Africa. Can you tell us what is likely to be achieved from Lula's visit to China?
I think with the last few years of economic kind of problems between Brazil and China during the Bolsonaro's government, there is now a opening up of the relations, economic and other aspects between Brazil and China during this President Lula's visit. Number one, they are signing about 20 agreements between the two, mainly in the economic field, but also in terms of the sixth satellite that they want to launch in order to monitor the Amazon basin. There is also a lot of agreements related to investments between the two, and these were relatively low during the Bolsonaro's government because of several controversies at the bilateral level. So they have something like $80 billion of Brazilian exports to China and $60 billion of Chinese exports to Brazil. Most of the Brazilian exports are related to raw materials and soybean and sugar and so on and so forth, while the Chinese were sending across a lot of manufactured goods to Brazil. They also have a lot of cooperation in the aerospace programs and in mining and other industries. Second major aspect of Lula's visit is in relation to Ukrainian crisis. In order to mediate between Ukraine and Russia, as Russia is part of the BRICS, there is a certain leverage that Lula government has in Brazil. And since Xi Jinping had announced the 10-point agenda for resolving the Ukrainian crisis, so there is a mass gathering here in terms of an alternative way of resolving the Ukrainian crisis compared to what the NATO had done so far, or the Russians have so far done in Ukraine. So this is an alternative method that Brazil, China, and other countries are planning to do. In fact, yes. President Lula had spoken to President Biden and to also European leaders. And so there is a way that is now being looked at on this.
Professor, thirdly, of course, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but can I ask you about Lula's other aim in China, and that is attending the investiture of his protege and his predecessor, Dilma Rousseff's investiture as head of the BRICS New Development Bank. This is a new initiative by the BRICS nations, which includes China, Brazil, India, and South Africa, to develop a new bank that will rival the likes of the US-led World Bank and the nominally Japan-led Asia Development Bank. How successful will this new initiative be in terms of really going head-to-head with the existing rivals in that space?
Yes, indeed. As the IMF and World Bank were not able to really put up funds across for infrastructure projects across the globe, and so there is a demand for new financial institutions to come up with these projects. So in 2015, the New Development Bank of the BRICS was established. And so far, between 2015 to 21, they spent about $29 billion. And between 22 to 2026, they wish to spend about $30 billion. And 74 projects have already been completed under the New Development Bank of the BRICS. So that's a profile which basically means that they are chipping in where there is a necessity for the infrastructure projects, sustainable development projects, and a quarter of the money has gone to transportation and energy separately, and also in terms of clean energy. And there is also a lot of investment in sanitation, water, and other subjects. So in other words, while there is a focus globally by the financial institutions on mega projects, there is the softer infrastructure projects in the HRD related, human resource development, education, water, sanitation, healthcare. These are also the aspects that the new development bank of the BRICS has been experimenting. In terms of competition with the ADB and others, initially there is a thought that it would compete with the IMF, World Bank, and the ADB. However, what we have seen is, as part of the regulations, they're actually having an MOU with the ADB, Asian Development Bank, and also with the AIIB. And the World Bank is also invited to be part of the progress in NDB. And there are a number of provisions where the NDB will function much like any other professional financial institution, instead of imposing any country's will. Because under the BRICS, there is the one country, one vote, and no country has a veto over the provisions within these. So in other words, it has worked out well so far, and it has not competed with any other financial institution.
Okay, Professor Srikanth Kondapalli, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing your analysis with us here on TRT World.